Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to another live WPStudio training event. We are in the middle of our Pods Extending WordPress training event. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. You should be hearing my voice and seeing the WPStudio background logo. As long as those are both happening, you are all set. So we are picking up exactly where we left off yesterday. Yesterday we used pods to create a number of custom post types and taxonomies. We talked about setting things up, adding in icons, and we started working on connecting some relationship fields. Specifically things like, if we were to create a new staff person, we tied in some taxonomies so we can say when that user or that staff member is going to work. We tied in some relationship fields. We have our name and our title. And then in our location, we did some relationship. Where did we do the news? Was it the news that we did the relationship? Yes. So we were then tying our current managers with the store location. So it was actually auto-filling and providing information for that. So that's where we are. But I said one of the problems when we created a pod, a custom post type, specifically for the manager, remember I told you yesterday that when you create items here with pods to create new custom post types, by default, they're going to support the title field and the editor field, the same that you'd have in a regular post or page. Now, if you uncheck the editor, you're not going to run into any issues at all. But if you uncheck the title field, now WordPress, by default, does not know how to display your staff, the managers, because by default, if nothing is set up in a custom post type, and this is whether you do it in code or use a plugin, if you do not set up anything else, the date and the title will show up here in the list of all the post types here. Now, just as a comparison, if we go look at the all posts, the blog posts, you're going to see we have a title, the author, categories, tags, whether it has comments, and the date. So these are set up when the custom post type is created. But when we remove the title, we are left with, it's trying to fill in the title. So let's fix this. And it's actually fixed fairly easy with a free plugin that will try and promote its pro version, but you don't really need the pro version. The only reason I would say if you want the pro version, you're supporting the developer. So if you're supporting the developer of this plugin, great. But in order to do what I'm going to show you, you can use the free version. So we're going to go over here to the plugins, and all you have to do is search for admin columns. You can do that right in the WordPress repository. Click Add New, search admin columns, and the plugin you're looking for is going to come up immediately here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and activate it since I already installed it on this site. When we activate it, you're going to not see anything happen. There is no settings panel. There is down here in the settings, but you don't really need to deal with it here. This may be a little bit more confusing if you come in from this area because you're trying to control all the items in this area. So ignore this. It's easier if this is the first time you're working with this plugin. Go to the location that you want to edit. And that would be here, all our listing area. Now, the one thing I don't like about the free version, and I'm a big opponent of lots of upsell in the admin area. This is a plugin that will constantly try and tell you, you're using pods. Did you know you can use special pods column? Well, you don't need that. So get rid of that. You now have an edit columns button. I want you to click this, and it's going to take you to the settings area. Notice how it says title and date. That's the default setting for any pod created with pods. Any custom post type created with pods is going to only have a title and date on the full listing of all the posts that you create. Now, we don't want to use the title because in the manager's custom post type, we got rid of it. So let's go ahead and open this up and simply say remove. Great. You know what? We don't even need the date. Why do we need the date in our listing of it? Now, at this point, do not save this because we've removed everything. So therefore, all of our posts in there will be inaccessible if we save at this point, because there's no link, there's no resource in the listing of all the posts to go in. Here, watch this. I'll save it, and it will actually tell you need at least something. So at least this update to this plugin has allowed us not to mess up our entire website. So we're going to come over here to add a column. At this point, again, rather than going through how this plugin completely works, I'm just going to quickly go to the items that we need to do for our purpose here. In the type, we need to choose a custom field. Now, yes, you'll see pods are there. Don't worry, that's a premium version. That's the pro version. You can do the exact same thing with custom fields. Because remember, everything in pods, all those managed fields, when we were creating those extra fields that we were attaching to the post type, those are regular WordPress custom fields. And so therefore, we're going to create custom fields. So let's go ahead and say we want to put the manager name. All right. Now come down here to the field. Because we selected custom field, and again, we're already tied in with the manager's custom post type, it's going to give us all of the fields that are available. We do have edit last and edit lock. These are hidden fields. These are part of WordPress. So I'm just going to say, I want you to fill in the manager name. At this point, I can also just say, all right, you're going to take up 40% of the width here. So it's going to take up 40% of the column. So we can actually set that. You can do it in pixels, so you can do some fine-grained control. Everything else, go ahead and you can play around with some of these. Some of them are pro items. Ignore that. Let's save that, and let's add another column. Do the same thing, add a custom field, and now we're going to choose the manager title. And we'll just say auto, so it'll fill out the rest of this. And we need to say manager title. Okay, let's update this. So now we should have a custom field pulling the manager name and the manager title. So we have updated this. Now we can go back to our manager list. Remember, this is what we started with. We refresh, and now we have our own setup of the listing of everything. It's a custom post type created with pods. Now we control what is able to be stored here. Now let's go back to the managers here. So we've got these managers. Great. We could even go in and let's say Mary works on Monday. Let me just update that. And let's go back to all the managers, and we will add Bob and have Bob work on Tuesdays. So at the same time, we have, with this admin column's ability to customize everything, we can keep adding columns. What are we looking for? We want to add in, let's find where to go, a taxonomy. Which taxonomy? Work schedule, because that's the only taxonomy associated with managers. So this is a plugin that's smart enough to know what is associated with which post type. So let's do work schedule. So let's go ahead and update this. So now we're starting to be able to make a more useful display of all our content in the backend. So using pods to create the custom post types, taxonomies, then we can use admin columns to control the display of what we want. Now, we're going to add something else that we didn't do, because I want to show you that pods isn't just for creating this content. So let's go over back to our regular blog posts. So let's come over here to our regular blog post. And let's say in our blog post, sure, you've got featured images that you could display. And so we're going to create let's create a test image. Bear with me one second. I want to pull up my images that we use for training. Gotta find it all. Helps to sort so I can go all the way back to V's. All right, so let's go ahead and create a new news item. Blah, 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 blah. We're going to attach a featured image. So let's go ahead and grab this image. So now we have a featured image. Set our featured image. I'm going to publish this, but let's say this news item, what if we need to put contact information? Or let's say we need to attach a manager to this, because we've already created managers. But this is a regular WordPress blog post. It's not a custom post type we created with pods, but we can do that with pods. When we add new, sure, we did all these create new stuff yesterday. Now we can extend things that already exist. So I can come in here and say, I'm going to extend either a post type, something else. Great, I'm going to add a post type, and in the post type, we are going to extend posts. That would be this one, the default WordPress posts. So now this basically attaches the hook of pods into regular WordPress posts so that we can add additional fields. What is one of the fields we're going to add? Let's call this Associated Manager. And the Associated Manager is going to be a relationship, and we're going to relate it to the manager. So let's save this. Save this pod. So now, in that post that we created, creating a new item, we now have an additional field that shows up. And again, we have to fix this tomorrow, because tomorrow we code that will fix this. So I'm adding that one now. So once we've dealt with this, again, we will get the names to show up later. All right. So let's go back to our all posts. Notice how, again, this is the regular WordPress posts. We have a bunch of things that are shown here. Well, we don't even use tags. So let's get rid of this. So we can now edit the columns of regular WordPress. Let's get rid of the tags. We're not going to use it. Remove. And let's add a few columns. One of them we are going to add is, let's see here, featured image. Now, what size do we want to show it in? Let's create a little thumbnail. Great, we're going to put a little thumbnail, and let's add another column. And this one, we want to add a custom field. The custom field is the Associated Manager. Save that. So now, we're adding in the fields that we want. I'm going to move the featured image over to the front. Let's update. And now, when we go look at our posts, we can even see, oops. it pulled the entire custom post type. Okay, we might need to fix that. But at least we got our image, featured image now showing up. We got rid of the tags. I may have missed something with that custom field. Let's take a look at it. Okay, let's see. We're looking for manager is the name. Okay, it is the associated manager. Field type. I'm just going to say, does it have content right now? So do we have, you're going to see why. So now we have, take a look. Do you have a manager assigned to this news item? Check, because we did assign a manager. Maybe in this situation, we don't need to know who it is. Is it been assigned? Does it have content in that field? Okay, so enough of this, but hopefully you can see that edit the admin columns is almost a must-have when you're working with pods to create something, especially for those of you who do work with clients. Taking the extra time to customize how your how the user experience is in the admin area is a step way beyond what most developers, assemblers, people working with clients even take the time to do, but it will make the life easier of you or your clients. Because now I can, in a quick flash, see which of my stuff has a featured image, which doesn't. What do I need to go in and get information? Have I actually filled out all of the fields that I need to have in order for it to be published? These are these type of things that, what if you have SEO fields in your custom post type, but you don't want that to go live until it actually has content in that field, so you can have a checkbox there. Ruana, removing the field in the pod, the slug is the issue, and so therefore, great question. It's a bit of a rabbit trail, but I'm going to show you. So when we remove for our manager that post title, so we're in here editing. There is no title field. So when we take a look at this, what is the slug? So the slug itself is going to be sitting here in, it's going to be sitting here underneath manager. At this point, this is where we would begin to rewrite what the title is going to be. So again, you can control if you need to change what the rewrite is. In the field, when we come over here in the field, let me find the advanced. Nope. Well, actually, let me just test this out. Because you asked a really good question, but I want to make sure I give you the correct answer and not just... Okay, so see we've got auto draft 2. Now don't worry, nothing else is showing up because we haven't created a template yet. So this is what's going on here in the auto draft. So at this point, I believe, and we're going to try something out. I may break something, but that's the joy of live training. Okay, so what technically should happen when we're in the rewrite, we can create, let me make sure this is rewrite with the front, make sure I'm actually rewriting in the correct area. Okay. So we're going to use manager / and I believe we can use the shortcode, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, but I forgot what the manager name is, the shortcode. All right, so let's see if I really broke the site. Go back over here. Refresh. Yes, I really broke the site. Okay, so that's not going to work. So let me fix that so I don't mess up anything more. Save that. Okay, what I'm going to have to do with this is we are going to have to rewrite. We're going to have to rewrite an actual code function. It's a filter. And in order for me to do that, I want to write it before I give it to you, so I will add that to tomorrow's webinar. So if I don't cover it tomorrow, I will have a reason why, or it will be in the handout. But, you know, not that this was the purpose, but this is an example of why it becomes that much more difficult when you remove the title. Because it's not just how do you associate things in the listing here, which we can fix with a plugin. How do you associate the relationship field that drops down, not just the auto draft? Because that title field is extremely important. Actually, let's go on another rabbit trail, and I want to show you something here. Let's do the same type of thing. Let's say the staff, because our staff that we're creating still has a title. But what if we want to use like a title, the name down here, as the same thing that the manager? So we want to go in here to the staff. Let's go to the staff here. That's the pod we're working on. We're going to edit this, and we're going to add a name. So let's add a field, and we'll call this staff name. So it has a similar naming convention with the manager one. But now when we go over to the advanced, see this? We can set default value via a parameter. These are these type of things where, again, in the code that I'm going to share with you tomorrow, we can have functions that will pass information on. So that when somebody fills in the title field, it will auto-fill this custom field. Like that, if somebody actually enters the, let's go back here. If somebody enters in the staff, they're going to create a new staff, they enter a title, this additional field will be auto-filled. It'll pass that information on. All right. So because of the time constraints, we do need to move on, but these are great questions, and I will see if I can, after we get off the call, start working on that section of the handout, so you'll have the code that you can just drop into any site. Okay, so let's go back here to the news. So we're going to look at the news, because this is where we have an issue. Because if we were to create a news item, remember this, we have these things called current manager and store location that should attach to it, but it doesn't. So here's an example. Let's go view this new opening, view. So what we have right now is the actual post title and the content that shows up, but the other information doesn't show up. So what I'm about to show you is about 3 different ways you can do it. It all depends on how you want to manage your site. If you're new to my training, I'm a big believer in the flexibility that there's 100 different ways to do the exact same thing. Because what works for me may not work for you. So let's go back here. We're going to edit this news item. And yes, see, we've got we're just going to go ahead and assign this here, even though it's not quite working the way we want it to work. So we've got this item, store location. We'll just use the store location for what we want. So here, inside your blog post, you can use a pod shortcode. The reason why we do it this way is maybe only on some of the blog posts or the news items that we're creating, we want to be able to pass in any of the other information we've got down here into the display, the content area. So I can go pod shortcode, and what do you want to do? I want to display a field from this item. This allows us to select all the fields that we want to use. And again, because I forgot what the name is, we need to go back over here, go to edit pods. We need to see what the other field is for the news. So we're looking for store location. These are the unique identifiers for each field. So I can now say store location, insert this. So what I'm going to do is store location. And then it's got a shortcode that drops pod's location in here. So when I update this and we go take a look, we're going to refresh, we should see the store location show up under here. Store location, Bob's Muffin and San Francisco. But the great thing about having your pod shortcode there is if we change it down here, update, it's going to change it here. Because the shortcode is simply taking whatever this field is set as. So that's one way. If you're more comfortable working here in the WordPress editor, and it's going to be a one-off type of situation, you can do it here. So this is the pod shortcode for displaying a field from this specific pod or this specific custom post type is a one-off type situation. But if you really want to take advantage of, say, you know what, every single one of my news articles needs to have this special store location underneath the content. So that's where Pods has this really cool templating system. Now, you need to be familiar with HTML. You need to be familiar with CSS, kind of how the core elements of web development. Pods templates basically gives you the flexibility of writing your own HTML and then passing that to the pod to auto insert it into your template. So you don't have to actually mess with your theme's template at all. So let's do this one, and we'll say this one, we'll call this our post news box. All right. Now, before you start typing away in your HTML and doing all those sorts of stuff, Pods has a really cool thing called magic tags. Magic tags are a unique way to identify every single field and value that is associated with a certain custom post type. So in order to get our autocomplete system going, we need to tell it which pod we're going to use. Well, we're going to be working in the news pod. Now, you can go through here and drag down through the whole thing to see these are all different fields in the database that are storing a value that are associated with the news custom post type. Remember that the WordPress is simply a face in front of the database. It's a user interface. So these are all the fields that are now accessible to us. So if I were to create we'll do a div, a simple little style display block. I'm going to create a kind of a box here. Margin 25 pixels, padding 25 pixels. Let's do a border 2 pixels, solid gray. This way, we're creating a little div that handles this. Okay, notice how it does markup It styles your code that you're working in. Now, inside this, we need to have a store location. Okay, now using the shortcode, we were able to select the field name. So if we see the store location, this is what we did before on an individual post. Now that I'm in the templates, I can go and open up the magic tag to automatically select the field. And we do that with the squiggly brace and hit the @ sign. The email @ sign. Once you do that, it's going to drop down this box, which means it starts to auto-complete. So since I know it should be store location, I begin filling it out. Now remember, the store location was a relationship field. It was relating to the actual location's custom post type. So if I simply filled in store location like this, store location, and left it, we wouldn't get anything, because what we're trying not to get all the store location custom post types. We want a specific one. We want the actual title of that store location, which would be post title. Again, let me open this up. Oops, no, cancel. Open in a new tab. There we go. Okay, so here we have our store location. See, we've got our title. We want the title of this location. Now I'm going to add something else here. 123 Main Street. Just to that one. All right, let's go back to our template. So, store location, period. So basically, if you have a relationship field, you're going to identify the custom post type or the pod name, period. Then which field in that post type do you want to use? Well, I want to use the post title. Great. Well, now I can come in here, have another line, and do another thing from the store location, and I can do post. Actually, what I want to do is find the custom field. See the custom field for address? Store address. Okay, so I've got this, and let's do a manager. Okay, so now let me go back to our store location, edit news. Let's edit this one. Notice how we also have a current manager. Now, currently in this dropdown, it just says auto draft. But when we are working with the templates, we can figure that out. So as we begin looking down here, scrolling, notice how in our scroll of the list, we did our store location here, but look, there's also current manager. And a current manager allows us to single out the actual field manager name. So I'm going to go current manager, and then period, and then I can start finding the custom fields that we created. Okay, so I've now created a template that is using HTML, some CSS. Anytime I want to pull in a field from my database, I simply use the magic tag, or I can copy and paste from over here from the reference. And it knows that every single time this template is used, it knows to fetch the field that is associated with that entry. Oh, you want me to zoom in on the template? Does that help? So basically, we have the magic tag, custom post type, period, related field. That's a big thing of working with related fields. So you can actually have related fields, and you could have 28 different custom post types all being managed by one custom post type, and based on how you're displaying it, we can see it. So now let me zoom back out just now, and we're going to attach this. So I'm going to publish this. Now this does not publish anywhere. It's sitting here in the pods template. It's waiting for us to do something with it. So pods has the ability to auto template, which means it doesn't matter what theme you're using. We can come into our news custom post type, go to the auto templating option and say, yes, I want to use this. I am going to select basically the only template we have right now and say, I want you to put this box after the content. Now there's no archive view because we didn't enable the archive view yet, so we don't have to deal with this. So I'm going to save this pod. Now, at this point, I'm going to simply refresh, go back over here to my news item, and I'm going to hit refresh. This was created by the custom post type. This was created by the template. Now you're wondering, where's the address? Well, we only put the address on the San Francisco office. So I need to come back over here. Let's go to our locations. Go to the news item. We need to edit the right one. So we're going to edit this one and change the location back to San Francisco. And now our news item has the address, the location. It's pulling in the related fields. So now, without having to write any code other than some HTML and CSS, and remember, templates are kind of like mail merge. That's a great way to think about it. We've all done mail merges in the past, especially if you go way back in doing actual physical mail. You know, if you didn't know this, they actually used to send mail through the U.S. Post Office. You had to go buy stamps. So, yeah, it's one of these. That's like trying to tell somebody about a landline. Yeah. It can be really frustrating when you're trying to tell a joke or trying to do one of those charade things where you're explaining a telephone cord untangling. How many of you have those really long telephone cords that keep, winding up and being this mess of a... Okay. Enough of that rabbit trail. Templates here in pods are nothing more than a mail merge, because we have our code, the structure, think about it as an envelope, and then we're putting the different fields in the specific locations of the envelope. And then we're basically running our template through our printer so that every one of our posts gets that box placed at the end of it. So that's the second way of attaching your content to the area. Now, some of this is going to be related to your actual theme, because remember, the theme is going to be displaying everything that's up here, depending on what type of theme you're using, whether or not it's going to show the date, the author, all that type of stuff. In which case, you then may have to make a custom template, and that's we'll deal with that tomorrow in this. Now, you can create an archive page depending on your theme for all the news items that would show. But in order for us to do that and show these things on the front end, we need to make sure that any custom post type we create with pods has the ability to handle archives. Archiving, or that means displaying all the content on the front end. Archives by default are not enabled with most custom posts. You have to make sure that they are enabled. So we are enabling this. And if you want to customize how it looks, you can actually use your own template in your theme called archive-news.php, and it will handle that. So if we're going to enable this archive page, and I'm going to override the page slug, because right now it's just news. I'm going to call this news feed. So any archive page is going to go through the news feed. Save this. So let's go back to our news. And if we were to view our little post type, interesting. Why did I mess with one of the other things? I did mess with something. Do I have a question mark? Okay, let me see. See, it shouldn't do this. It shouldn't. It should actually show. So I may have messed up. Let's go back to our custom post type. Go back to our news. So we're going to find it. It should not show like this in the URL. So let's go back to our advanced options and rewrite. So that's what happened. We had unchecked the rewrite, which meant WordPress didn't know what to do with the permalink, because we were saying we're going to treat this as if there is no permalink. Go back to the original way of putting question marks and parameters in the URL to define what location we're in. So we need to check the rewrite, save the pod, and now I believe if we hit this, we're going to get, actually this is still the old way, so let's come back over here, refresh, make sure I'm not, okay, now you're going to see it. Okay, so now take a look at the URL. We've got the domain name, we've got basically the name of the custom post type, and then the title of the post. So now this is looking better. Again, the reason why that happened, we had unchecked in doing something else the rewrite ability of the custom post type. So if you ever run into that, check here in the advanced options. So the archive page, if we did not enable an archive, actually if we did not change this, let me change this item, save this pod, take a look at here, the archive page would automatically show up if we get rid of the name and just leave news. In which case it's going to now show the archive, and it's going to basically treat it as the archive page that the theme supports. So see that? Great news, woo. And we've got this item. Okay, so let's make something really weird for the archive page. So we're going to come in here, and first we're going to change, and we're going to call it news feed, which means the news here isn't going to work for the archive because page is no longer found. Your archive is going to be under news feed. But if we go back to the actual post, notice how it goes back to news. It's kind of one of those where inside pods, it makes it so easy for you to tweak and customize and make sure that the front end is displaying exactly how you want. Too often than not, when we're taking these developer training events or we're watching somebody create something, we're so focused on the visual, we forget the items that are actually structurally integral for a website, and that is domain URLs, because that's going to play into your SEO. So it's great to have a simple little small thing, but it's even better if your archive page actually means something, that your news feed is now here. And again, we're not changing the structure of how archives are displayed in WordPress. We're simply changing and rewriting the naming convention of the slug, which can be helpful with SEO. That's just a side little thing to put in the back of your mind. All right, so now let's go to the templating options, because now we want to create something weird for the archive page. So let's go back to the template, And the reason why we're going to use the template and not the shortcode is this is going to be a one-shot deal, but we want to really craft it differently than it will display in other methods. So this may not work how I want. I haven't even tested. We're just flying by the seat of our pants on this idea. Yeah, if you're new to my training, sometimes in the middle of my training, I get this really cool idea that technically should work, but I have no idea if it's going to work. So we'll call this our archive news thingy. All the technical jargon. So in this, let's go make sure we're selecting our pod's reference. And I'm going to create a div. We're going to style, let me zoom this in so you can see it. Woo, a little much. See it a little bit better. Style. This time we're going to put some hard numbers on it. Let's just go ahead and say width 45%, float left, and then let's do a margin 25 pixels, padding 25 pixels, and let's also throw in a we need a border so you see what we're doing. Border 2 pixels dashed. Okay, so I'm putting this div just because I want you to see that there's a wrapper going on, and so now I can simply, wrap in an H2 tag, the post title. Let's add that in there. And then let's go in and put the post content div. I'm just going to put them in a div. We're not going to deal with too much of the styling. Content. Okay, so this is just something little simple. Let's publish this. I'm not adding in all the other stuff. You saw how I did that before, so you can do it on your own. Let's go back to our... we'll leave that there. We're going to go back to our pod, and now we're going to assign to our news custom post type in the auto templating section. We're going to assign our new archive news thingy. I'm not sure it will replace, but we're going to try. It may make this horrible. So basically what you can do is choose, and some themes will support it, some themes won't. You can either put it after, like we did here, after the regular content that the theme already puts out. You can add it before. So this is a great way that maybe you want a template before and a template after the content. You can grab some custom fields, put it at the top. Maybe you have you want to associate an advertisement with a certain thing, a certain custom post type. Great, you can put that before, do a template in it. Or after. I'm going to try replace. I don't know if it's going to work. So I'm trying to replace the regular look with this. All right, so didn't quite work how I wanted, because here's the first post, and then this actually occurred afterwards. So when this happens, we're going to actually have to make a physical template in the theme. And we'll do that tomorrow, because tomorrow I show you basically the third way to display content, and that's getting into the theme. And so we're going to actually have to pull up a code editor, and you're going to see me make a new page template in the theme. And that way we can basically overwrite whatever the theme is doing and say, use our template, which is going to float this item back and forth. And basically it's going to create a brick system that is going to put it back and forth. So it can handle templates for both single views as well as the archive. If your theme supports the overwriting of the content filter, not all themes support this, you have to do what we're going to do tomorrow, and that's with an actual physical page template. Now, so the page template is the third way. There is a fourth way that a lot of people want to know about. So for example, let's come over here and we're going to create in WordPress the regular way of creating a home page. So let's just create a home page, and I'm going to say this is the home page. Great. So glad that's the home page. Now the Voce theme allows me to remove a title, which is great. So I'm going to publish this. It's just a regular page I'm using. Now let's go to WordPress in the reading area, and we're going to select a static page for the home page. We're going to deal with the post page later, but our static page is here. Save this change, because tomorrow we're going to create a post page that is not used by WordPress to display all your pieces of content. We're going to use something called WPStudio to create our blog feed, but that'll be tomorrow. So now we've set our home page. Let me save it just to make sure. And notice how great this is the home page. So let's go back to that home page. We have now set that page. The home page is now controlling the home page. You can see that that's the front page. And we can go back in here to, there's lots to do tomorrow, into the pod shortcode. Because there are other things that we can do. We can display multiple pod items. So what we're going to do is we're going to display multiple pod items. Which one? News. Which template do you want to use? We're going to use that archive news thingy, which should create things side by side. And we can set, again, we're going to use our own theme that we've already made, or you can type up your own theme you want. We can start to limit the number of posts that are included. So let's limit it to 4. You're going to see why in just a moment. You can order by anything. You can set where we can actually search in, return something where the taxonomy is only featured image or stuff like that. And then we're going to insert this. So it's going to create a shortcode. When we update this and we go back to our home page, you're going to see that, great, we've got our information. Now, this is not going to work exactly how we want it to work. So I need to go back to our template. I think I may have added too much spacing. Let's go back to our archive news thingy. Let me try it with less width. There. See now how it goes back and forth? All right, so let's add some more news. We're going to add 2 more news items. Add news. Muffins are amazing. So let's go ahead and inside this one, we'll just add that image that we had already uploaded. Boom. We're putting that in there. Great. Publish. You can now see as we begin publishing, great, we've got our weird look happening. Publish here. Another news item. This is another item. Publish. So now we have all 4 showing up. And we're showing it up in a grid. This is our home page. It's pulling our items from that custom post type using a shortcode and then controlled by this template. The template is pulled in every single time you have an item to show. And basically with this one, we have a 4th way. Well, it would be the 3rd way for today, but it's the 4th way to display content. It's a different way of using the shortcode. You can use a shortcode. Quick summary, because I've got about 4 minutes to go. You can display content out of the custom fields and the pods, the stuff that you're creating, by using a shortcode inside each individual post. Marianne, the grid layout is simply just a float. I'm floating it to the left. I know I'm only going to be able to fit 2. because I'm saying 40%. Each of these is taking 40%, and therefore there's no more room for a third, and so it just floats over. It's a horrible way to do it, but it explains the purpose. So we can display it through a pod shortcode inside the post. You can show it using a template that you assign to append to the bottom of your theme. We can create a shortcode that is going to fetch everything and kind of serve like as a feed generator for you. And then tomorrow, we're going to create a page template in a theme that not only will call everything individually, we'll also be able to use a template inside the theme. It's kind of inception. You know, it's like code inside of a code inside of a code. But if you take the time, pods can make your site do anything, because you can take any type of data entry, put it into the database, and then using templates and shortcodes and systems, you can display things how you want. Okay, I know this was kind of a fire hose of information for some of you. That's why it's recorded. That's why it's available for replay. It'll be up on YouTube probably within the hour. It'll be in the members area, probably shorter than that. Don't forget, tomorrow we have a ton of stuff to cover. We're going to dive into some code, some filtering code to change the way things look in the back end. We're going to then also work with the page templates. Brian, great question. So what about using pod shortcodes with page builders like Elementor? That is another level of inception. You can use the shortcode as is. You can also like Beaver Builder has their own thing called Beaver Themer, which can fetch the different fields of any custom post type and put it in there. And so there's a lot of things that you can do. It just depends on how deep you want to go. At the end of some of this may make sense when I start to show you like WPStudio, because it kind of fetches the whole query system that WordPress is famous for, and the loop system that WordPress is famous for, and puts it all together. So hopefully we'll be able to kind of wrap it all up into a nice, pretty bow tomorrow. But I think we'll be going into the ish time for tomorrow's webinar. So take care, everybody. I do have a hard stop here. And hopefully I'll see you all tomorrow. Same time, same location. And I will have the handout, which includes links to the different plugins we've used and other tools, as well as what I'm going to do in the handout is a lot of these templates that I've quickly just typed in a whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to copy and paste these into the handout for you so that you can dissect it as you go. And again, it will be recorded tomorrow if you can't come. And thanks so much for joining me today. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great rest of the day.